Welcome to Guide to IELTS. Today we'll discuss this IELTS Writing Task 2 question from Cambridge Book 19. First, let's understand the question. The question is about whether competition or cooperation is more beneficial in various aspects of life, work, school, and daily life. There are two key points to remember. The question says discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So in your essay, you have to talk about both sides, but you can choose to write a strong essay in favor of either competition or cooperation, and that would be a correct answer. But you can also write an essay which says that we need a balance between competition and cooperation. The question mentions work, school, and daily life. This means that the question is about different aspects of life. It is a question about cooperation and competition in general. If the question only mentioned work or school, your approach would be different. As we develop ideas, the ideas will be about competition and cooperation in general, but will include examples from work, school, and daily life to ensure our essay is complete and connected to the question. Before generating ideas, I try to think of examples from my own life experiences and life experiences of those around me related to this question. This helps me understand the question better. This also helps me come up with better ideas. So let's consider examples of competition and cooperation at school, at the workplace, and in daily life. At school, we have lots of examples of competition. Trying to get better grades than classmates, performing better in exams, excelling in extracurricular activities. And examples of cooperation from school could be working together on group projects, studying together, students helping each other with study notes. Examples of competition from work could be aiming for a promotion, impressing the boss, or earning a higher salary. Examples of cooperation from workplace, supporting each other, working as a team instead of backstabbing, covering from a colleague who's unwell or has personal commitments. In daily life, examples of competition could be trying to look better among friends, sibling rivalry, or rushing to board a metro ahead of others. Examples of cooperation could be helping your neighbors, supporting friends, and working as a community. This makes me think of the word empathy. Empathy means understanding the feeling of others. The idiom to put yourself in someone else's shoes is a perfect way to understand empathy. Imagine you are in someone else's position. What must they be feeling? Why are they doing what they are doing? That is empathy. It encourages cooperation and kindness in all aspects of life. It's a great word that I'll use in my essay when talking about the importance of cooperation. With these examples, we understand the question really well. Now let's move on to generating ideas for both views. I'll be discussing a lot of ideas here. You do not need all of them for writing one single essay. So let's start with the positives of competition. Competition makes us work harder. We can write examples of a student who studies harder to score better than peers, or an example of an office worker who works till late or who burns the midnight oil to gain a promotion. So we can say that competition can be a reason for success and also for personal growth. So when we are planning, a point does not just mean a single thought. Sometimes a point can be one thing happens, because of it the other thing happens. So we may write it as one point in our essay, but it is a point that will explain. And in doing so, we'll be able to use better vocabulary, better transition words, etc. The second point in favor of competition also comes from this, that competition makes us try to surpass the other person, try to do better than the other person. So we can say that it is a motivation for new ideas and innovation as well. Maybe one scientist works harder just because he wants to do better than others and ends up inventing something new. Because competition motivates us to work harder, it also drives economic growth. So we can say that competition drives economic growth for individuals, their families, society in general, and countries as a whole. So competition becomes a catalyst for growth. It propels us to do better. Now let's move on to positives of cooperation. First, cooperation creates a positive environment in work, study, and day-to-day life. It fosters a positive environment. Another positive of cooperation could be that it can lead to better productivity. If people work together, the combined results may be better than if they would work individually. Here we can mention the word synergy, which means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That is, when people are working together, they achieve more together than they could individually. Because of cooperation, we can have better and more genuine relationships. Because the question mentions school, work, etc., that we have better relationships with classmates, colleagues, and in personal life. There's another add-on point I can think of here, which is very specific to personal day-to-day life, that even in families, cooperation is important, whether it is family members pitching in with household chores or managing finances, etc. Till now, we have just been discussing the positives of competition and positives of cooperation. But when the question says discuss both the views, discuss does not mean it has to be only positives. When you're discussing a point, you can talk about its positives or you could talk about its negatives as well. So now I'll talk about a couple of negatives of competition. The first is that competition can lead to mental health issues such as stress, whereas cooperation can reduce stress. Another negative of competition could be that competition can lead to wasted energy in pulling others down. So we could say that competition could be counterproductive, which is it has the opposite of the desired effect. Another possible negative of competition is that it can mess up work-life balance. When people are constantly trying to outdo each other, they may end up working long hours, leading to stress and burnout. Let's list out the possible negatives of cooperation. Because of cooperation, a person can become too laid back. In a team, not everyone always puts in the same amount of effort. This can lead to people getting credit who didn't contribute as much, and there is the possibility of being fooled. Unfortunately, the world is not always nice, and people may take advantage of others' cooperative nature. Next, let's look at the vocabulary variations for this question. We can vary the phrase at work with phrases like in the workplace, on the job, during working hours, in the course of one's duties, in one's line of work, etc. To replace at school, there are phrases like during school hours, in academic environments, in the classroom, within the school premises, etc. For in daily life, I think of phrases like in everyday life, as part of the daily grind, in day-to-day life, in regular life, as part of everyday existence, etc. Instead of a good thing, we can use beneficial, advantageous, favorable, positive aspect, constructive, helpful, etc. For against each other, there are words like versus, contesting, competing, or in rivalry, in opposition, and in competition. For competition, we can use different forms of this word: compete, competing, competitive. And then there are also words like rivalry, contention, and contest. For cooperate, First, I think of different word forms of this word: cooperative, cooperation, and cooperating. I also think of words and phrases like collaborate, team up, join forces, teamwork, partnership, and synergy. As I'm understanding the essay question and as I'm thinking about what points to write in my essay, I also keep thinking of any other related words or phrases that come to my mind. These words and phrases do add to the vocabulary score in our writing, but they sometimes also help us come up with better ideas. So here are some other words related to competition: ambitious, cutthroat, aggressive. There are also phrases like fast-paced environment and rat race, which can be used whenever we are writing about the lifestyle of people in today's times or about the work environment in today's times. Some advanced vocabulary related to cooperation is: two heads are better than one, to lend a hand, to pitch in, foster a sense of camaraderie, promote teamwork, achieve a balance, encourage collaboration, mutual support, and nurture a cooperative spirit. I'm also thinking of the phrase healthy competition, which is talking about fair and constructive competition, which motivates a person to work harder, but which does not give unnecessary stress. This is a phrase we can use if we write a balanced essay, where we say that cooperation is certainly good, but we need a bit of healthy competition to drive innovation, etc. We don't need this much vocabulary when writing an essay. When I write my essay, I won't be able to use even half of it. Even if you think of 2-3 synonyms or word forms and a couple of idioms and phrases, you're good to go. Let's now discuss the format for discuss both views and give your opinion essays. In these essays, you have to write about both views. The format for the essay is: first, introduction, which you can either start with a general statement or directly paraphrase the question. If you write a general statement, then you write paraphrasing after that. The question has two parts: statements and a question. Paraphrase the statement part in the introduction. The thesis statement comes after the paraphrasing, and that comes from the question part. Thesis statement mentions what the essay will discuss. You can also mention your opinion here. After the introductory paragraph, we have body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. In one of these, you discuss one view, in the other one, the second view. And finally, we have the conclusion, in which you summarize the essay, you give your opinion, justified by points discussed in the essay. One thing to understand here is that the question says discuss both views. That means you do not need to necessarily write in favor of the views. You just need to discuss them. So you could even tell negatives of a certain viewpoint. In the essay, we need a variety of vocabulary. We have already discussed a range of words and phrases. We also need a variety of sentence types and transition words. I'll keep pointing these out as I write. Let's start writing our essay now. First, we write a general statement. General statement is a broad introductory comment that sets the context for the topic you're discussing. To come up with a general statement, you need to identify the main idea and the broader context of the question. Let's look at a few examples of general statements that can work for this essay. The question mentions studies, work, and day-to-day life. So the question mentions different aspects of life. And as we write this essay, we'll look at how competition and cooperation affect professional success, affects relationships, etc. So taking both of these contexts in mind, I've written this general statement which says that competition and cooperation have been a central theme in various aspects of life, and it influences how we achieve success and how we build relationships. Interplay means the way in which two or more things influence or interact with each other. A few example sentences are on your screen to help you understand the usage of this word better. Central theme means the main idea, topic, or subject of something. We have used it here to convey that competition and cooperation are an important part of life, and their impact on our life is a key topic that is often thought about and discussed. This is another general statement that can be used for this essay. This one also talks about the influence of competition and cooperation in different aspects of life. The sentence structure that I have used here is inverted sentence. An inverted sentence is when the usual order of words in a sentence is reversed or switched around. A few examples are on your screen. Now, let's talk about paraphrasing. There are different ways to paraphrase a question. One common method is synonym replacement. This means using words that have the same or similar meanings as the original words. Here is an example of the paraphrased question using synonym replacement. I replaced competition with rivalry, cooperation with collaboration, etc. There are many other methods of paraphrasing as well. Synonym replacement can be used with them too. Here is paraphrasing of the same question by changing the sentence structure. Changing sentence structure involves reordering the words or combining sentences to change the structure. Another technique of paraphrasing could be to use passive voice. In this case, I used the passive voice, "it is believed by some," and replaced competition with engaging in competition and cooperation with fostering cooperation. Another way to paraphrase the question involves turning the statement into a question and using synonyms. A couple of examples are on your screen. While paraphrasing, we could also include examples to illustrate the points. Here, I added examples like aiming for a promotion and striving top grades to explain competition, and group projects and collaborative work environments for cooperation. The general statement and paraphrasing of the essay question will remain the same regardless of which side I am taking in the essay. However, the thesis statement will depend on the specific points I am discussing and the opinion I am presenting. One way to write a thesis statement for a discuss both views essay is to use a generic one that does not mention your opinion. For example, this essay will discuss both perspectives, and depending on the discussion, I'll express my opinion towards the end. However, if possible, you should write the thesis statement according to the points you are writing and what your opinion is. Here are a few possible examples, depending on whether you're writing an essay which advocates a balanced approach, or you're writing an essay in favor of competition, or you're writing an essay in favor of cooperation. The important thing to understand is that what you mention in the thesis statement should be reflected in the points you discuss in the essay. For example, if your thesis states that competition or cooperation is beneficial for personal and societal development, your essay should include points that specifically address how these contribute to personal growth and the betterment of society. Now let's talk about body paragraphs. I'll start the first body paragraph with "on the one hand." This phrase is one half. The second half is "on the other hand," which I will use when I begin the second body paragraph. The sample essay I'm writing now is an essay which advocates a balanced approach between competition and cooperation. Here are all the points that I discussed. even when I was discussing them, I'd mentioned that you don't need so many points to write one essay. So in the essay that I am writing, I'll start by mentioning this positive of competition. Then, in the same paragraph, I'll mention that this can lead to certain negatives. And then in the second body paragraph, I'll mention points in favor of cooperation. In the first sentence of the first paragraph, I've used the conjunction pair so that this is a complex sentence. Then, for the paraphrasing of the question, I have made an interrogative sentence. And for the thesis statement, I've again used a complex sentence using the conjunction that. I've also used a present participle phrase in this sentence. A present participle phrase begins with the ing form of the verb. I could also have written this as which combines elements of both competition and cooperation. As I keep discussing each sentence of the essay, you'll be able to see the sentence on your screen. Now I'll start with the first body paragraph, which will discuss competition. The first sentence is a simple sentence which starts with the introductory phrase, on the one hand. This sentence serves a dual purpose. It works as a topic sentence. It tells the reader that in this paragraph, I'll discuss about competition, and it also gives us a point in favor of competition, that it is highly motivating. The next sentence elaborates the point that competition is highly motivating by saying that it motivates us or inspires us to aim higher. In this sentence, I have used inverted sentence structure, and I've also used the phrase from to. This is a great way of giving examples when you want to say that something affects many different types of things. In the next sentence, I again add to the same point, but I use the transitional phrase, this is crucial because, to refer to the previous point, and I use the phrases rat race and join the fray. Now in the same paragraph, I'll mention that competition does have certain negatives as well, because after mentioning the positives of competition, I'm mentioning the negatives. I'll start with however. Also notice this word can. Simple words like can or may or phrases like is likely to help a lot when you're writing essays. I could also have written this leads to stress. That sounds like that competition will lead to stress in every single case. That is not true. It can lead to stress. The probability of stress could be very high, but we cannot say that in 100% of the cases there is stress because of competition. So we use can. Now we start with the third paragraph of the essay, the second body paragraph, which will talk about cooperation. We start with on the other hand, which is connected to on the one hand, which we started our previous paragraph with. We start with a simple sentence that says that cooperation promotes a healthy environment. The next sentence elaborates this point by explaining how cooperation promotes a healthy environment. I've used the word camaraderie here, which could be replaced by simpler vocabulary such as friendship or team spirit. This is because it introduces the reason or explanation. I've started with the present participle phrase, that is with the ing form of the verb, collaborating. This is another way of writing the same sentence. You should try to use different types of sentence structures. In the next sentence, I'll give an example of how cooperation helps. The example I'm using is from educational settings. Now, I could just have started this sentence with, for example, in educational settings, but I've started it with an outstanding example of this can be observed in educational settings. Also, I've used the conjunction pair not only but also in this sentence. This is followed by a more specific example of teamwork in schools. The phrase I've used here is "a case in point is," which can be used to introduce a specific example. I could just have started it with "for example" or "for instance" also. Now I'll start the next point in favor of cooperation, which mentions that while competition could lead to mental health issues, cooperation promotes a healthy lifestyle. At the end of the second paragraph, we had mentioned competition can lead to stress. There we had discussed the usage of the word can. Now here, I could have written can lead to, but instead I've written often leads to. Once again, the tone is this may happen. If I would just write that competitive stress that leads to mental health issues, that would sound incorrect because that would say that it always happens. In the next sentence, I've mentioned another point in favor of cooperation or cooperative spirit. I've started it with the transitional word furthermore, and I've used such as to write an example within this sentence. And in this sentence and then the next one, I have emphasized how cooperation can be beneficial both for community and society as a whole. And finally, here's the conclusion, in which I've clearly mentioned that cooperation should be prioritized, it should be encouraged, but healthy competition does have its merits as well. This opinion is supported by the points made in the essay. Fewer points were presented in favor of competition, and a point was also included against it. In response to this essay question, you could write an essay which is strongly in favor of competition. You could write all the positives of competition, saying that it is important for motivation, for success in life, etc. And then mention negatives of cooperation, saying that it makes us laid back, people could take advantage of us, etc. And then write very clearly in the conclusion that you favor competition. Similarly, you could write a strong essay in favor of cooperation. There is another way you could approach this essay. You could write an essay which says that competition is important at work and school, whereas in other aspects of life, cooperation is a better option. So you don't necessarily have to say only competition is good or only cooperation is good or a balanced approach is required. You could also say that in some aspects of life, competition is good, and in other aspects of life, cooperation is good. That's it for now. Hope this helped you. I'll be posting solutions and discussions of the other writing questions from book 19 soon. All the very best.